with that being said, we'll get into the first fight, and the only fight we'll be covering, Jack Catterall versus Harlem Eubank. This fight was in the UK, an all-UK bash. And Catterall, former world title challenger, most recently lost to Arnold Barboza. This was his return back to the ring and back to the win column. He took on Harlem Eubank. Now, Eubank, a lot of people might not be familiar with. He didn't start boxing until 18 or 19 years of age. He was a former karate world champion. He is the cousin of Chris Eubank Jr., the nephew of Chris Eubank Sr. So obviously boxing is in the blood there in the Eubank family. And I thought it showed, but I thought he was very raw, very green. He was even skipping around the ring at times instead of boxing and moving. And it led to, with Catterall's style, it could be a little bit of a stinker at times. A little bit looking to counter and pick his spots. It was a boring fight. It was a sloppy fight. It was an ugly fight for 6 rounds, and then a headbutt ended it. Accidental headbutt. Both fighters were cut. We go to the scorecards, and in the end, Catterall gets the win. Unanimous decision. What'd you make of this fight?
Nobody wants to see anybody get cut or get hurt. But I would think that there was a few people that probably said, oh, I'm glad. Whatever it took to end that, that's where we needed to get to. The end! You know, sometimes you got to get to the end. And we got to the end with the cut. But, look, it was not a comfortable fight to watch. I think that's the nicest way I can say it. One of the commentators called it a chess match. You know what? I differ. If that's a chess match, they never moved a piece. They kept... really, chess matches, for the commentators that said that, fellas, you need to actually move pieces across the board. That's chess. You know what I mean? Your rook, whatever you're moving, your knight, you're getting your queen in play, but you're moving the pieces. There wasn't much moving of pieces or of hands in this fight. Now, I know there was a lot of people knocking it down. Look, first thing I say is that I don't think they were running, but I wouldn't call that great boxing either. And I'm not a guy who says you have to be coming forward to make a boxing match, that you have to fight, if you want to use that simple word. I'm not the guy. I know it's the sweet science. Nobody understands it or respects it, I don't think, much more than I do. I understand that it's boxing. It's the sweet science. It's a mix. Some people's styles are aggressive to do it. Some aren't. You have all these different, just like if you go into Dairy Queen, you got different flavors of ice cream. You got different flavors of styles. But these styles did not mesh. And not only that, but what you touched on, Eubank did show that he just was limited. He was limited with his expertise. He didn't have enough tools in the toolbox. He hasn't had a lot of time to develop those tools, to have those ideas. And I thought there were times where you could see it, at least me as a trainer, where he didn't know what to do. He wasn't confident. He wasn't, you could see he was a little tight. He wasn't confident in himself and in his skills or his development of those skills at this point in his career, stepping up in class, to know what to do and to feel confident that he could do it. And therefore there was a lot of trepidation, a lot of posturing, a lot of posing, a lot of this. This is not this. Just for those who might be confused, this, what is that? Is that the Karate Kid? Brush on, brush off. What was that famous line?
Wax on, wax off.
Wax on, wax off. Wax on, wax.
Wax on, right hand. Wax off, left hand. Wax on, wax off.
This wasn't a Karate Kid movie. I don't want wax on, wax off. You know, Rich? I want this. Bam, bam, bam. Not this. And so there was, and I'm being honest. And I don't care if people like it. They come here because they want honesty. You're going to get honesty. And I think it was, I'm not knocking him. I'm not trying to knock him. I'm pointing out some of his shortcomings. I just don't think Eubank was or is developed enough in this business, in this sport, at this level to do the things that had to be done. And that lack of confidence, that lack of knowledge in those areas, the lack of comfort zone in those areas made him hesitant. And the hesitation manifested itself in this form, in doing this. He was trying to con his way a lot of times. Again, I use the word posturing, but a lot of, he was the dog that was barking at the door, but he never left the door. He was, you know what I mean? He never, the door's open, he's barking, but he ain't coming out to do any biting. And again, I'm pointing out in my business how that was interpreted, how it came about, how I saw it, and why I think we were seeing it, because of those lackings in those areas. Now, the other guy, Catterall, you got to throw something on him too. You got to throw a little shade on him too, as far as making this a dark night, if you will, not a brilliant night. But that's his style. He's a counterpuncher. He was born a counterpuncher. He'll die a counterpuncher. That's his style. He's not an exciting style. You want excitement. You're not really saying, okay, when is Catterall fighting? Let me look at here he's fighting on the 18th. You're not doing that. He's a good counterpuncher. And he had nothing to counter, because the other guy, in some spots, he reached in, he got a little crazy, but not much. Other than that, it was what I said. It was wax on, wax off. You can't counter wax on, wax off. It doesn't get counted. You can't Simonize that. You can't. So there you had an impasse. You had two wrong styles. And one guy, because he's just, I think, underdeveloped, doesn't have the confidence, doesn't have the wherewithal yet at this point in his career, because of what you pointed out, because he didn't have that background. He started late. So at the end of the day, you got the headbutt. I'll tell you something interesting about the headbutt. I'm not accusing nobody of doing anything on purpose. I'm not doing that, because I don't know. But I do think that I go down different roads than other people, because I see some things I don't think they see, because they haven't done this their whole life, where sometimes you get desperate. You don't know. You don't know what to do. You don't know if you can continue down that road into that room. That it's not getting lighter. It's getting darker. And I think there's a possibility a little of that was going on with Eubank, where I thought that Catterall was warming up a little bit. He was getting a little bit better in the 6th round, 5th round, 6th round. He was pot-shotting a little bit. He was starting to counter a little bit more. He landed an uppercut. He was starting to warm up a little bit. I mean, warm up. It was still the yard. It was still the Antarctic. I know that people are going to say warm up. I know it didn't go above 22 Celsius or whatever the heck it is when we go over Europe. Well, I always like the Fahrenheit, because I don't know what the Celsius is. And I thought that when that started to happen, I think maybe some more of the doubt and the fear of what's coming next. Like, what do I do? Like Eubank, like, what do I do? He's starting to hit me a little bit more. Again, he's not confident that he can do the things that more experienced fighters can do. He hasn't quite gotten there yet in his development. And this was a big step up for him from what he'd been fighting. So all of a sudden, does he try to end it with a headbutt? I'm not saying he did that, but he gets reckless. He gets desperate. He's trying to not get into a trap where he can't get out of. So what's he do? He rushes in, but I'll tell you what he did do. I'll tell you what I can be 100%. And Richie is of course taping here, but Ben, our man Bennett, the editor, he's going to put this up for you. When he came in, Eubank, he took his left arm. I don't think he was throwing it to land a punch. He threw it. Again, I'm going to stand by this. My experience, my eyes tell me. He threw that left hand. He looped it behind his head, around his neck, and he pulled him like lassoing. Like you ever go to the rodeo and you lasso the calves and you pull them in, you pull their legs out from under them. He lassoed them. That was the lasso punch. I'm going to be like Muhammad Ali. I'm going to name punches. It was the lasso punch. And he threw it behind his neck and he pulled him in. And he created a head clash. Now, I'm not saying he did it purposely, but I am going to say this. I stand on my stuff. I don't care if the daggers come at me because I'm confident in saying what I believe and what I see and what my experience tells me and my gut tells me. He purposely threw that punch behind his neck and purposely pulled him in. Was he doing it just to get a clinch? Because, again, he's unsure of himself. He's a little bit out of control. Yeah, okay. But that's what happened. And that's what created that horrific cut. And that's what stopped the fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you nailed it, Bud. When I watched it, I had that feeling. Was that intentional? And then after the fight, Catterall, when he gave his words in the ring after, he touched on that. And it sounds like he felt like it may have been intentional. I thought, to your point, that Catterall was starting to take over and starting to distance himself. And I thought, because you're getting a feel for that style, because it is an amateuristic style. You're not used to the angles that the punchers are coming from, and he started getting a better feel to be able to set up that uppercut and pick his spots. But yeah, you could see how raw, how green Eubank was.
And I'll finish with this, Bud. In boxing, this is for the fans out there that are not familiar, we have a drill. If you go into a gym, sometimes you see trainers having their fighters do this drill, where it's like shadow boxing, but it's with somebody in front of you, an actual opponent. So the two fighters will get in the ring together, and they will square off without hitting each other. And I know you're laughing already, but it's real. They're shadow box, and they'll pull their punches short. So they'll stand off in front of each other. This way, instead of just shadow box, you have more imagination. You have something in front of you real that you can gauge. You can gauge range. You can see the punches coming, instead of just being in a mirror with yourself. And you both, nobody's hitting anyone, and you're both just throwing the punches short, and it's a drill. I'm telling you, there were times I watched that fight, I thought they were doing that drill. I'm not trying to be a wise guy. I'm not trying to, to just be a smart aleck and just throw, burbs at somebody. No. It looked like they were doing that drill, just pulling punches, not really trying to hit each other.